The alien city was full of light and noise. Tall buildings rose like mountains, and the sky was filled with flying ships. People moved quickly in the streets, their voices mixing together, a river of sound that never stopped. But in one small corner, in the shadows where no one looked, a little alien girl sat alone. She was small, with thin arms and big dark eyes that always seemed full of fear. Her clothes were torn and her hands shook when someone came near. Nobody spoke to her and nobody smiled at her. To them, she was strange, broken, and better left alone. Her name was Leora, though very few remembered it. The people of the city only whispered about her. She lost her family, they said, all gone in one terrible accident. But Leora knew it was not only the loss of her family that hurt her. It was the silence that followed, the heavy silence when no one cared. The world was full of voices, yet none called her name. Every step she took felt like walking through a storm of eyes staring at her. Her chest grew tight, her breath weak, until she ran away to hide again. Leora's days were all the same. She woke hungry, searched for scraps of food, and hid from the crowds. She found safety only in dark alleys or empty ruins. Sometimes children pointed at her and laughed. Sometimes adults shook their heads and turned away. Her world was made. Of fear and loneliness, the city was alive, but her heart felt dead. At night, when the lights of the towers glowed bright, Leora curled up in an old blanket. She closed her eyes, but sleep never brought peace. She dreamed of fire, of screams, of her parents reaching for her. She always woke with tears on her cheeks. Her voice never called out, her lips never asked for help. She was trapped inside herself, unable to step out. But one evening something changed. The city was busy as always, the sky filled with golden lights. And then, a strange ship came down. Unlike the others, it was small, silver, and shaped differently. The people looked up, curious, for it was a human ship. Humans were rare here, visitors from a distant star. They were different, not only in face but also in spirit. Some aliens did not like them, calling them soft or weak. But others whispered that humans carried something powerful, something invisible. They carried kindness. Leora watched from her shadow as the ship opened. A group of humans stepped out, tall and curious. They looked around the city, some smiling, some serious. One of them noticed her. He was young, his hair short and his eyes gentle. While others walked ahead, he stopped, staring at the little girl hidden by the wall. For a moment their eyes met, and Leora's heart jumped. She quickly looked away, pressing her hands to her chest. Nobody looked at her like that, not with softness, not with care. The human tilted his head, but he did not move closer. He did not laugh, he did not whisper, he only gave a small smile, and then he walked on, leaving her in the shadows. But in her heart, something tiny moved, a small warmth she did not understand. She wanted to follow, yet her legs stayed frozen. That night she could not forget the look. The smile replayed again and again in her mind. Her world had been filled with cold eyes, sharp and cruel. But this human's eyes had been different. They held no judgment, only light. And for the first time in a long time, Leora wondered, what if someone truly saw her? What if she was not invisible, not broken, not alone? The days passed and she saw him again. He walked with the other humans, carrying strange tools and bags. Sometimes he laughed with them, sometimes he worked. But whenever his eyes found her in the shadows, he smiled again, always gentle, never forcing her. It scared her, yet it also made her chest feel less heavy. She began waiting for him, not daring to step out but hoping to see his face. It was the only light in her endless dark. Still the city did not change, still people looked at her with coldness. Still she dreamed of fire and woke with fear. But now there was something new inside her, a small hope, fragile like glass. She did not know why the human noticed her. She did not know why he smiled. But deep inside, she wished he would not go away. On the 7th evening, when the sky turned red with sunset, Leora hid near the landing site, her heart racing. She wanted to see him one more time, But as the human ship prepared to close for the night, she saw him walking toward her with something small in his arms. It wriggled and barked softly, a sound she had never heard before. Her eyes widened, her body trembling between fear and wonder. The human stopped just a few steps away. He bent down, his gentle eyes meeting hers again, and with a smile he whispered, "This is for you," the puppy barked once, wagging its tail. And for the first time, Leora did not run. She stayed frozen in shock. Her heart beat louder than ever. Something was changing, something was beginning. The orphaned alien girl did not know it yet, but her life was about to transform forever. The alien city woke each morning with the same rush, lights rising, ships moving, voices blending together. But for Leora, every day still felt heavy, every sound too sharp, every eye too frightening. She sat in her corner, hugging her knees, whispering to herself, "Stay small, stay hidden." It was the only way she knew how to survive. Yet the memory of the human would not leave her. The way he looked at her, not with pity, not with cruelty, but with something gentle. The way his smile reached his eyes, warm like a sunbeam in her cold world. She replayed that moment over and over, and now she waited, her heart secretly hoping to see him again. The humans were rare here. They came for trade or research. Most of the city did not like them, saying humans were strange, but some whispered that humans were different because of the way they cared. Leora did not understand care. She only understood loneliness. Still, something inside her wanted to believe those whispers were true. One evening, the air shimmered with red light from the setting suns. Leora crouched near the landing area again. She told herself it was only to find food left behind, but in truth she wanted to see him, and then she did. The young human walked with his group, carrying bags, laughing softly. But again, his eyes searched the shadows, and again, he found her. This time he did not just smile. He stopped, bent down, and placed something on the ground. It was small, furry, and moving, a creature with bright eyes and a wagging tail. It barked, a strange sound in the alien city. Leora gasped and stepped back, her chest tightening. The puppy barked again, and ran toward her. She froze, her hands shaking, but the puppy only licked her fingers, tail wagging faster. Its warmth touched her skin, and her fear cracked just a little. The human spoke, his voice soft. "Don't be afraid. He's your friend." Leora stared, unable to answer, her throat locked, the words trapped inside. But her heart felt something new, something she did not have words for. The puppy pressed against her leg, whimpering for attention, and for the first time in years, her lips curved. It was not a full smile, only a shadow of one, but it was real. The human saw it and nodded gently. He did not step closer. He did not force her. He only left the puppy with her, then walked back to his group. Leora watched him go, her chest burning with confusion and hope. She looked down at the puppy, who was now chewing the edge of her blanket. A sound slipped from her mouth, half laugh, half sob. It felt strange, but it felt alive. That night, Leora did not sleep. In silence, the puppy curled against her, its tiny body warm. It licked her cheek when she cried and wagged its tail when she whispered. For the first time, the darkness was not empty. She whispered a name, though her voice was weak. "Star." The puppy barked as if to accept it, and the bond was sealed. The days that followed were different. Leora still feared the crowds, still hid in the shadows, but the puppy pulled her forward, tugging at her blanket. It wanted to explore, to chase, to play. She could not stop it, and slowly she followed. When voices rose and people stared, her chest grew tight, but then she looked down at the puppy's bright eyes. It gave her courage she did not know she had. The human watched from a distance, always careful. He brought food for the puppy, sometimes for her too. He never asked for thanks, never pushed her to speak. He only gave small nods, small smiles, as if saying, "It's okay." And every time he smiled, her heart grew less heavy. She wanted to speak to him, to say even one word, but her throat closed and her lips locked. Still, she hoped he could see the gratitude in her eyes, but not everyone liked what they saw. Some aliens frowned, whispering, "Why is a human helping her?" Others laughed. "Even a puppy won't fix that broken girl." Their voices reached her ears, sharp as knives. Fear returned, pressing on her chest. She almost ran back into her old darkness. But then the puppy barked loudly, standing in front of her as if to protect her. And for the first time, Leora stood a little straighter. She did not speak, but she did not run either. One evening, as the human gave her more food, she managed a single sound. The thank. Her voice broke, barely a whisper. The human's smile widened, his eyes bright with pride. "That's enough," he said softly. And she knew it was true. Even a single word was enough to break the silence of years. But as the stars lit the alien sky, danger also grew. Far away, hidden eyes were watching. Voices whispered in dark corners. The orphan girl still lives. Leora did not know it yet, but the kindness of a human and the love of a puppy were about to lead her into truth far more dangerous than her fear. Her story was only beginning. The city glowed with colors, lights rising from towers, ships painting trails across the night sky. To many, it was a place of wonder, of life, of endless voices. But for Leora, it was still a storm she could not escape, even with Star, the little puppy, by her side. The fear did not vanish. Every morning, Star barked happily, pulling her toward the streets. It wanted to play, to run, to greet the world with wagging tail and shining eyes. Leora followed, but her steps were shaky, her chest tight, her eyes always darting. Every crowd felt like a wall. Every laugh felt sharp. Every whisper felt about her. Her hands trembled as she clutched Star's small blanket. And sometimes the old voice in her head whispered, "Hide, hide, they will hurt you." But Star refused to hide. The puppy barked at strangers, wagged its tail, even jumped at children, who giggled and touched its fur. Leora wanted to pull it back, but she could not. Star dragged her forward, step by step, into a world she feared. Her heart pounded like a drum, sweat filled her palms, yet she stayed, because Star's eyes, bright and fearless, told her she was not alone. The human was always near. He walked with his group during the day, carrying strange tools, writing notes, speaking in his soft voice. And when he saw her in the corner, he always stopped, always smiled. Sometimes he gave her food. Sometimes he gave Star little toys. He never asked questions, never demanded her voice. He only said gentle words like, "Good job," or "You are brave." And though Leora's throat still locked, her heart understood every word. At night, though, the shadows returned. Leora curled with Star in her blanket, but her dreams were filled with fire. She saw her parents again, reaching, calling her name. Then the fire swallowed them, and she woke with tears, her chest burning, her voice silent. Star licked her cheeks, whined softly, pressed its small body against hers. She held it tight, whispering without sound, wishing the dreams would go away. One night, the human found her sitting alone after such a dream, her eyes red, her body shaking. He did not ask what was wrong. He only sat nearby, close enough for her to feel safe, but not too close to frighten her. He placed a small light beside her, a soft glowing lantern. "It keeps nightmares away," he said. And though she did not answer, she kept the light near her that night for the first time. The shadows did not feel endless, still the fear was strong during the day. Once she tried to walk across a busy street with Star, but the voices were too loud, the crowd too close. Her breath shortened, her knees weakened. She felt the old panic, the old trap closing around her. She dropped to the ground, covering her head. The puppy barked wildly, pulling at her sleeve, refusing to let her sink into the darkness. And then through the noise she heard the human's voice, calm, steady, kind. "Breathe, Leora, just breathe." She obeyed without thinking, drawing slow, shaky breaths. The Storm faded just a little, enough to stand again. The human's words stayed with her. Breathe, just breathe. Each time the fear rose, she whispered those words in her mind. And slowly, very slowly, she began to move more freely. The steps were small, but they were hers. And each one was a victory, but the city did not forgive easily. Whispers followed her. Stares cut into her skin. Some people laughed. She walks with a dog now. Does she think she is normal? Others sneered. Humans waste their time on her. Better let her vanish. Each word stabbed, each stare burned. Her hands shook. Her eyes filled with tears. She wanted to run back into the shadows forever. But then Star barked and stood in front of her, the tiny puppy, fearless against the world. And Leora, trembling but stronger than before, stayed where she was. The human saw all this, and his heart ached. He knew her pain was deep, deeper than any wound on the skin. He knew her fear was not weakness, but scars left by loss. And so he remained patient, never pushing too fast, never demanding too much. He understood something others did not. That healing was not quick, but step by step, breath by breath, and with Star by her side, she had taken her first steps already. Still in the shadows of the city, danger stirred. Dark eyes watched her from high balconies. Old voices whispered in secret rooms. The orphan still walks. They had taken her family before, and now they spoke of silence again. But Leora knew nothing of this. For now, her fight was not with enemies, but with herself. And every day, with Star's bark and the human smile, she grew braver. Her fear was still strong, but her hope was finally stronger. And though she did not know it, her small courage was about to shake the shadows of the city itself. The city looked calm on the surface, lights shining, voices rising, ships moving across the skies. But underneath that calm, shadows whispered, eyes followed, and danger waited. Leora did not see it. Not yet. Her world was still small, made of Star's wagging tail, the human's gentle smile, and her own trembling steps forward. Each day she grew a little braver. She walked longer paths, spoke a little louder, touched the world she once feared. The puppy pulled her into life, barking at strangers, chasing lights, making people laugh, and the human watched from nearby, proud but cautious. He saw her courage growing, but he also saw something else. Strange looks from certain faces, whispers that stopped when he turned his head. He knew there was a reason for those whispers, a reason for her pain. One evening, when the suns dipped low and the streets glowed red, the human sat alone with his notes. He studied old reports, records of the accident that took Leora's family, but the more he read, the less it looked like an accident. Too many details were missing, too many lies written as truth. His hands tightened around the papers. Someone had wanted Leora's parents gone, and if that was true, then the little orphan was never safe. He looked up at Leora, who was laughing, softly as Star chased a piece of cloth. It was the first time he had ever heard her laugh, weak but real, and his heart grew heavy. How could he tell her that her family's death was not chance, but choice? That her loneliness was born not of fate but of someone's plan? For now he stayed silent, keeping the truth locked inside, but the secret burned in his chest. Meanwhile, Leora felt the city changing around her. Where once there had only been cold stares, now some eyes softened. Children waved at Star, adults nodded to her in passing. Not all, but some. It was enough to give her strength. Still, her fear never fully left. When the crowds pressed too close, her breath grew sharp, her knees weak. But each time, Star barked and pulled her forward, and each time she remembered the human's words. Just breathe. So she breathed, and she survived. But in the dark corners of the city, not everyone welcomed her steps. A group of cloaked figures met, in silence. She walks again. One hissed. She should not. She was meant to vanish with them. Another whispered. Their eyes glowed with anger, their voices full of threat. The human makes her strong. The creature gives her courage. A third spat. Then we must break them both, the leader said. Their plan was set, though Leora did not know it. One night, Leora dreamed again, of fire. She saw her parents' faces, their hands reaching, but this time the dream shifted. The fire cleared and she saw dark shapes standing behind the flames, watching, waiting. She woke with a cry, clutching Star. Her chest shook, her voice trapped. But the puppy's warmth grounded her, its little bark pulling her back to the present. She whispered one word, broken but clear. Why? It was the question that haunted her, the question no one answered. The next day, the human found her sitting alone. He looked at her eyes, saw the storm inside them, and for a moment, he almost told her everything. He almost said, "Your family was not lost in an accident." He almost said, "They were taken from you." But when he saw her fragile smile as Star licked her face, he stayed silent. Instead, he only said, "You are stronger than you know." Leora lowered her head, not answering, but deep inside she felt the truth of his words, even if she did not yet know why. Her small courage continued to grow. She walked into the market with Star one morning. The crowd was loud, the colors bright, her body shook, but she did not run. Instead, she whispered softly, "Breathe." The puppy barked, and strangers turned to look. Some smiled, others frowned. One alien stepped closer, staring at the mark on her sleeve. It was the family symbol, worn and forgotten. The alien whispered with wide eyes, "She should not be alive." Leora froze, her chest tightening. But the crowd moved on, the whisper fading like smoke. Still, the words clung to her heart, echoing again and again. That night, the human sat in silence. He looked at her sleeping with Star curled at her side, the small lantern glowing near her head. And he made a choice. He would protect her, no matter the cost. The secret was dangerous, the truth heavy. But the girl had suffered enough. If the shadows wanted her silenced, they would have to face him first. Yet the shadows were already moving, already watching, already waiting. And though Leora did not know it, her quiet life was about to break apart. The secret of her family was close, and once revealed, it would change everything. The suns of the alien world rose high, spilling golden light across the tall towers. The city prepared for its festival, the largest gathering of the year. Flags waved, drums echoed, voices rose like waves in the air. For most, it was a day of joy, color, and noise. But for Leora, it was a day of fear. Crowds had always been her prison, every laugh a dagger, every stare a chain. Her chest tightened even when she thought of standing among so many. She wanted to stay in the shadows, hidden and unseen. But Star had other plans. The puppy barked excitedly, running toward the bright lights, tail wagging. It pulled at her sleeve, eyes shining with joy. "Not today," she whispered, her voice thin and trembling. But Star barked louder, refusing to listen. The human walked beside her, his hands calm, his steps steady. He looked at her fear but did not push. Instead, he spoke softly. "You don't have to face them all at once. Just one step. Just one breath." His words echoed in her mind. Just one step. Just one breath. Her body shook, her heart raced, but she took that step. The festival gates opened, and the noise rushed at her like a storm. Still she stayed. The streets were alive with color. Music filled the air, dancers moved in circles, lights sparkled like falling stars. Children ran past her, laughing, chasing each other with ribbons. Star barked and chased after them, tail wagging. The sight pulled a small laugh from Leora's lips, though fear still weighed her chest. The human smiled at her, proud of her courage. But then the stares came, sharp as always. People turned, whispering, pointing. "Is that the orphan?" One voice hissed. "She should not be here," another muttered. Her hands shook, her breath quickened, her knees almost gave way. But then Star barked again, standing in front of her as if shielding her. The little puppy's courage lit a spark in her. And for once she did not run. The human bent closer, whispering, "You are not broken, Leora, let them see." Her lips trembled, but his words pressed against her fear. She lifted her head, just a little. Her eyes met the crowd, not with anger, not with pride, but with quiet strength. It was enough to silence some whispers. The music carried on, the festival continued. and Leora took another shaky step forward. They reached the heart of the festival, where the largest circle of dancers moved. The crowd clapped, cheered, shouted. With joy, Star barked happily, tugging at Leora to join. She shook her head, fear wrapping tight around her chest, but the human placed a hand on her shoulder, gentle but steady. "Even if you only say one word, it will be enough," he said. Her throat locked, but his eyes gave her strength. The crowd quieted, noticing the small girl standing with a human and a dog. Whispers rose again. "The orphan, the orphan." Her heart pounded, her voice trapped. But then she felt Star's fur against her hand, soft and warm. The puppy barked once as if telling her, "Now." Leora opened her mouth. Her voice was thin, broken, but it carried through the silence. "Hello," she said. The word was small, but in that moment it was everything. The crowd froze, shocked. Some laughed, some gasped, but others softened, their eyes no longer cruel. A child clapped, another waved. And slowly, the noise turned, to cheers not all, but enough to make her chest feel lighter. But among the claps and music, one voice whispered sharply, "She should not be alive." The words were meant to be hidden, but they cut into her ears. Leora froze, her eyes wide, her chest heavy. She turned toward the sound. An alien in the crowd was staring at the mark on her sleeve, the family symbol she still carried. Their face was pale, their eyes dark with fear. "She carries their mark," the alien whispered. "She is the child of the ones who defied us." The human stepped closer, shielding Leora with his body. His eyes sharp, his jaw tight, but the crowd had already shifted, whispers spreading like fire. Her family. Yes, the ones who died. Not an accident. She should not stand here. The festival music played on, but beneath it the storm of voices grew louder. Leora's body trembled, fear flooding her again. But when she looked down, Star was still barking, fearless. The human's hand pressed gently against her back. Steady and sure, and for the first time, instead of collapsing, she stood taller. Her voice did not rise again, but her silence carried strength. She did not run. She did not hide. And in that moment, the orphaned alien girl, once invisible, was seen still. The danger was real. In the shadows beyond the festival lights, dark figures watched. Their eyes glowed with hate, their whispers sharp. "She is alive, and now the people begin to remember. She will bring the truth to light if we do not act. The time has come to finish what we began." The festival burned bright with joy, but in the corners of the city a storm was waiting, and Leora, though braver than before, was walking straight into it. The festival ended with lights fading into the night sky, music echoing into silence. But the whispers did not fade. They grew stronger, spreading through the streets like smoke. "The orphan is alive," voices said. "Her family's blood still walks among us." Leora did not understand the weight of those whispers, but she felt their sharpness. She felt the eyes watching her, following her even after the crowd was gone. The human stayed close, his face calm but his eyes troubled. He had seen the fear in the alien's voice, the way the crowd had changed, and he knew the truth could not stay hidden much longer. For days he had carried the secret of her family, and now the shadows were closing in. It was no longer safe to stay silent. That night, when the streets were quiet and only the lanterns glowed, the human sat with Leora by the ruins where she often hid. Star curled against her legs, breathing softly in sleep. The human took a deep breath and spoke, his voice heavy. "Leora, there are things you must know." Her big dark eyes lifted, afraid but curious. She hugged Star tighter, bracing for his words. "Your parents," he began slowly. "They did not die by accident." Her body stiffened, her hands shaking. "They opposed something powerful, something corrupt in this city. They stood against leaders who wanted control that would hurt many." His voice lowered, almost a whisper. "That is why they were silenced." The words cut like knives. Leora's breath caught, her chest heavy. She shook her head, eyes filling with tears. "No." Her voice broke. "No, No. But deep inside she already knew. The dreams of fire, the shadows in her memories, the whispers in the crowd, they had all been pieces of this truth. The human reached out but did not touch her. "I am sorry," he said softly. "I wanted to protect you from this pain." Leora hugged Star tighter, sobbing into the puppy's fur. Her body shook, her heart broke again. But beneath the pain, something else stirred, a spark of anger, a spark of strength. If her parents had been silenced because they stood against lies, then their voice was not gone. It still lived inside her, yet the danger was greater than ever. In hidden chambers, the cloaked figures gathered again. "The girl knows," one hissed. "The human has told her." Another growled. "She must not live to speak," the leader declared. "We will strike soon before she grows strong." Their plan was set, their shadows stretching wider across the city. The next morning, Leora walked with Star through the streets. Her eyes red from tears, but her steps firmer than before. She still trembled at stares, but she no longer lowered her head. The human walked beside her, protective but proud. "You are not alone," he reminded her. Her lips did not answer, but her silence carried strength. Still, the city was restless. Some whispered with sympathy now, remembering her family. Others muttered with anger, fearing what her presence might mean. The symbol on her sleeve became more than cloth. It became a memory, a reminder of voices once silenced, and that made her a target. That night, danger arrived. Shadows surrounded the ruins where she slept. Cloaked figures moved silently, blades hidden under their robes. Star growled, sensing them first. Its tiny body trembling but fearless, Leora woke with a gasp, eyes wide, chest tight. The human grabbed her arm, pulling her close. "There, here," he whispered, voice sharp. Figures stepped forward, their eyes glowing, their voices cold. "You should not be alive, child of traitors," one hissed. "This time, we finish what we began." Fear gripped Leora like ice. Her knees shook. Her throat locked, her body froze. But Star barked loudly, leaping at the shadows though it was small. The sound broke her silence, her fear cracked. The human stood in front of her, ready to fight though outnumbered. "You will not touch her," he said firmly. The figures laughed, their voices dark. "You think you can protect her forever?" The leader sneered. "She will never escape her family's fate." The standoff filled the night with tension. Leora's heart pounded, her breath quick. Her old fear screamed, "Hide, run, disappear." But another voice rose inside her, the voice of her parents, the voice of the human, the bark of her puppy. And for the first time, she chose not to hide. Her hands shook, her voice trembled, but she shouted, "Stop!" The word echoed louder than she thought possible. The cloaked figures froze, shocked that the silent orphan spoke. Her knees nearly gave way, but she stood. "You took them," she cried, tears burning her cheeks. "You will not take me." The human's eyes widened, proud. Star barked again, fierce and brave. The figures growled, stepping back into the shadows. "This is not over," the leader warned, and then they vanished into the night. Silence returned, broken only by Leora's sobs and Star's whimpers. The human knelt beside her, steadying her trembling shoulders. "You were brave," he said softly. "Braver than you know." Her chest still hurt, her fear still burned, but something inside her had shifted. She had faced the shadows. She had spoken. Her parents' voice was not gone, it lived through her. But she knew the danger was not finished. The truth had been spoken aloud, and now the city itself would soon hear it. The night was still heavy after the attack, the air cold with fear. Leora sat in silence, her body trembling. Star curled against her chest. The human kept watch, his eyes sharp, his hand never leaving the small lantern that glowed between them. The shadows had spoken their threat, and they would return. But something had changed, something deep inside. Leora, she had spoken, truly spoken. Her voice had carried into the darkness, not hidden, not broken, but strong. Even though her knees had shaken and her tears had fallen, she had faced them, and that small act lit a fire within her, a fire that no fear could fully put out. The human saw it too. "You are not the same girl who hid in the shadows," he told her softly. "You are becoming the voice your family once was." His words pressed against her heart, heavy but true. She lowered her head, whispering weakly, I am still afraid." The human nodded. "Courage is not the absence of fear, Leora. It is standing even while afraid." She held Star tighter, feeling the warmth of its little heartbeat. And for the first time, she believed him. The city around them grew restless. The whispers spread faster, stronger. Some said the orphan had returned to claim her family's voice. Others said she should be silenced forever. And in the middle of this storm, Leora stood trembling but no longer silent. The human knew the moment had come. They could not hide forever. The truth of her family had to be spoken, or the shadows would win again. So he led her to the central square where people gathered, the place where voices rose, where messages were shared. Leora's hands shook, her breath short, her chest tight. But Star barked happily, pulling at her sleeve, reminding her she was not alone. The square filled with faces, eyes sharp, voices murmuring. "The orphan," someone hissed. "She carries their mark," another said. Leora trembled, but the human placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to be perfect," he whispered. "Just speak your truth." Her throat burned, her fear screamed, but she lifted her head. The silence of the square pressed on her. Star barked once, breaking it, and then her voice rose, thin but clear. "My family was not lost by accident," she said. Gasps spread. Through the crowd her tears fell, but she did not stop. "They stood against lies, against cruelty, and for that they were taken. They tried to silence me too, but I am still here." Her words shook, but her strength carried them farther than she thought possible. The crowd stirred, voices rising. Some shouted with anger, some with disbelief, but others nodded. Her words reached old hearts that remembered her parents. They remembered the truth, the voices that once spoke for them, and now that truth stood, again in the form of a trembling girl with a puppy at her side. The cloaked figures appeared, stepping from the shadows. Their leader pointed at her, voice sharp with fury. "Lies, all lies, this orphan speaks poison, she must be silenced." But the crowd shifted, voices rising against them. "No, let her speak," someone shouted. "She carries their courage," another cried. The tide began to turn. The shadows had ruled with silence, but now the silence was broken. The leader raised a blade, stepping toward Leora. Her body froze. Fear clawed at her again. But the human stepped forward, blocking the path. "You will not touch her," he said firmly. The cloaked figures moved closer, but the people did too. For the first time, the city stood with her, not against her. The shadows hissed, retreating into the alleys, their power fading under the hay. Light of many voices, Leora's knees gave way and she sank to the ground, but Star licked her cheeks, barking joyfully. The human knelt beside her, pride shining in his eyes. "You did it," he whispered. "You spoke, and they cannot silence you anymore." Tears streamed down her face, but they were not only of sorrow, they were of release, of courage, of hope. She looked at the crowd, at the people who now watched her not with cold eyes but with respect. For the first time she was not invisible, not broken, not alone. The days that followed were different. The whispers of the city changed. Some still feared her, some still hated her, but many listened. Her voice, though soft, carried weight. The human stood by her and Star never left her side. Together they turned silence into sound, fear into courage, loneliness into hope. One evening, as the sun set and the city lights rose, Leora sat with Star in her arms, the human beside her. She looked at the stars above, glowing across the endless sky. Her parents were gone, but their voice was not. It lived in her now, carried by her trembling courage. She stroked Star's fur, whispering softly, "You changed everything. The puppy barked happily, tail wagging, eyes full of light. And in that moment, Leora smiled, a true smile, not broken, not small, but full. The orphaned alien girl was no longer silent. She had found her courage, her hope, and her place in the universe.